You know that feeling, that little jolt, maybe, when you're driving towards a really big bridge or maybe going into a long tunnel?
Oh, yeah, that sort of tightening in your chest. It's actually, well, pretty common.
But today we're going deeper than just that little flutter. We're doing a deep dive into something specific. Gephyrophobia.
Gephyrophobia. It sounds technical, but it's more than just not liking bridges. It's a recognized anxiety disorder.
An anxiety disorder.
Okay?
Yeah.
A specific phobia. It's about this intense fear, especially, with older bridges or tunnels sometimes. It can really grip people.
And the name itself, I bet it has like Greek
You
origins.
got it. Comes straight from Greek.
Oh,
Kephora,
yeah.
Gephura, that means bridge.
Okay, bridge. Makes sense.
And phobos.
Yeah.
You probably know that one, fear.
Ah, phobosphere. So literally bridge fear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dead simple when you break it down. And for this deep dive, we've pulled together quite a bit of info on it.
So what's the plan? What are we trying to figure out here?
Well, the mission, really, is to get a handle on what gephyrophobia actually is, how it shows up for people, how it manifests.
And importantly, what can be done about it? Are there options?
Precisely. What help is out there for people dealing with this? We want to shed some light on it.
Okay, so manifestation. How does this fear, like, actually look? It's not just being scared of heights, is it? Because I get a bit woozy high up, but bridges feel different.
That's a great point. Yeah, acrophobia, the fear of heights, they can definitely overlap. And taller bridges, they often make gephyrophobia worse for sure.
Okay, so height is a factor.
But the fear itself in gephyrophobia can be quite specific. For some, it's this intense fear of driving off the edge, just losing control and going over.
Ooh, yeah, that's a scary thought. Losing control like that.
Absolutely terrifying for some. Then others, they might worry specifically about the wind.
The wind?
Yeah, like a really strong gust just pushing their car off the bridge.
Wow, okay. Didn't think of that one.
And then there's another big one. The fear that the bridge itself isn't sound.
Mm.
The structural integrity that might just collapse.
Right, so it's not just one thing. It could be the height, the car, the wind, the bridge itself crumbling, a whole cluster of worries.
Exactly. It's about feeling vulnerable to all these different potential dangers, some external, some perhaps internal, like losing control.
That internal part is interesting. I read something about Dr. Michael Leibowitz. He had a take on this.
Yes, Dr. Leibowitz. He's done a lot of work on anxiety disorders. His perspective is really insightful. He suggests gephyrophobia often isn't just isolated.
Not on its own. What's it connected to?
He links it to a bigger picture involving panic attacks.
Panic attacks. How does that work with bridges?
Well, think about the symptoms he points to. Feeling lightheaded, dizzy, heart racing. Classic panic symptoms, right?
Yeah, definitely.
His idea is that the core fear might actually be getting trapped in that state, having a panic attack while on the bridge or in the tunnel.
Ah, so it's the feel of the panic attack happening there, where you feel like you can't get away.
Exactly. That feeling of being trapped, unable to escape the situation, and the panic.
Yeah.
That's why it gets classified as a situational phobia. The situation itself reliably triggers the fear.
That really changes how you think about it. It's not just scared of bridge, it's scared of panicking on bridge where I'm stuck.
Precisely. The bridge becomes the location for this terrifying internal event.
So, okay, if you have this and you live somewhere like, I don't know, New York or near the Chesapeake Bay where big bridges are just unavoidable, how do people cope?
That leads to some really interesting real-world examples, things authorities have actually done. It shows how serious this is, like the old Tappan Zee Bridge in New York.
A Tappan Zee, what did they do there before they replaced it, you mean?
Yeah, before the new one went up in 2019, the New York State Thruway Authority, they offered this specific service. If you had gephyrophobia, you could arrange for someone from the authority
Wait, really? Arrange for what?
to drive your car across the bridge for you.
No way. They actually did that.
They did. Apparently, back around 2008, it was used maybe 6 times a year. Not a huge number, but
But the fact they even offered it, 6 people a year felt strongly enough to need someone else to drive their car across. That's intense.
it really underscores the severity for those individuals, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Imagine feeling that unable to cross.
Definitely. And wasn't it just New York? I feel like I heard about something similar elsewhere.
You're right. The Maryland Transportation Authority, they used to do something similar for the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Another huge bridge. Did they stop too?
The authority itself doesn't offer it anymore, no. But what's telling is that private companies have stepped in. They now offer that same service.
Ah, so the need is still there. The government stopped, but businesses saw an opportunity because people still needed help.
Exactly. The demand didn't just vanish when the official service did. It proves it's an ongoing issue for people.
Wow, that really speaks volumes.
And maybe the most well-known example happening right now is up in Michigan, the Mackinac Bridge Authority.
The Mackinac Bridge, that's the really long one, right? Between the Michigan peninsulas.
That's the one, 5 miles long. They have a program too. For a small fee, they'll also provide a driver for your vehicle.
And is that used much? Or is it like the Tappan Zee, just a handful?
I don't know. This one's used a lot more. We're talking about roughly 1,000 drivers using that service every single year.
1,000. 1,000 people a year need someone to drive them across that one bridge.
Yep, 1,000. It really puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How many people are impacted by this fear and how much it affects their ability to just travel.
Absolutely staggering. 1,000 people. Now, speaking of the Mackinac Bridge, isn't there that infamous story about the wind in a small car?
Ah, yes. You must mean the incident with Leslie Ann Pluhar and her Yugo back in 1989.
The Yugo, that's right. Such a tiny car. What was the story there? It was tragic, wasn't it?
Very tragic. She went off the bridge. The initial conclusion, the one that kind of stuck, was that she'd stopped her car over the open steel grating part of the bridge deck,
Okay, over the grating.
and that a sudden, powerful gust of wind came up through the grating and literally pushed her Yugo off the side.
Pushed it off. Wow, that became like the cautionary tale, right?
Yeah.
Small cars, big windy bridges.
It absolutely did. But here's the crucial part, the detail that often gets missed. That explanation is actually disputed.
Disputed. How?
Well, they look at the recorded wind speeds, measurements taken on and near the bridge around the time of the accident,
Yeah.
and they didn't really support the idea of a gust strong enough to do that. The numbers just didn't quite add up to that theory.
So the story everyone knows might not be quite right.
It seems possible, yeah. It highlights how complex these things are,
Yeah.
and maybe how quick we are to find a simple explanation, especially after a tragedy. Perhaps other factors were involved.
That makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About how narratives get formed. It definitely underlines the anxieties people have about bridges, though, and maybe the potential for misinterpreting things.
It certainly does. A very stark reminder.
Now, okay, this phobia, it's clearly a real clinical thing. People get help for it. But it's also kind of seeped into popular culture a bit, hasn't it?
That's a great observation. Yes, it has popped up here and there in media. It does show there's some broader awareness, even if it's sometimes played for laughs.
Like, I remember an episode of that show, The Middle, the kid, Brick.
Exactly, good pull. There's a whole episode called The Bridge where Brick develops a pretty serious case of Gephyrophobia.
Yeah. They found humor in it, but you also felt how genuinely distressed he was. It made
Yeah.
it kind of relatable, actually.
Right, and it's not just sitcoms. There was a British drama back in '91 called GBH. Michael Palin played a character, Jim Nelson, who suffered from it too. A much more serious take.
Michael Palin. Interesting. So dramatic portrayals as well. And wasn't there even, like, way back, a Charlie Brown Christmas? Am I imagining that?
You're not imagining it. You're absolutely right. 1965,
Yeah.
Lucy at her little psychiatric booth.
Yes.
She's trying to diagnose Charlie Brown, and she throws out Gephyrophobia, though she kind of butchers the pronunciation a little bit.
Huh. Classic Lucy. But still, the fact that the word or the idea was around and recognizable enough to be in a Charlie Brown special back then.
It's fascinating, isn't it? These little cultural footprints show that it's been on the radar for quite a while.
Definitely. So if folks listening find this whole topic interesting, maybe they've felt something similar or just curious, where else could they look? Any related rabbit holes?
Oh, absolutely. For a start, the story of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge is pretty compelling.
Ah, Galloping Gertie, the one that collapsed on film.
That's the one, Galloping Gertie. A wild story about engineering, wind, and, well, bridge failure. Really taps into those fears about structural integrity.
Yeah, that footage is unforgettable. Really shows the power involved.
Definitely. And beyond that specific bridge, someone could look into, well, there are literally lists online. List of bridge disasters, or more broadly, list of structural failures and collapses.
Okay, if you want the historical context for why someone might worry about collapse.
Exactly. It gives that background. And then, of course, there's the whole universe of phobias. Looking at a general list of phobias can put Gephyrophobia into the wider context of specific fears people experience.
So plenty more to explore if this has piqued your interest.
For sure. Lots to dig into.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive then, it feels pretty clear that Gephyrophobia isn't just, a casual dislike. It's a real thing.
Absolutely. a real phobia, and it can have a genuinely significant impact on someone's life, on their freedom to move around their world.
Yeah, really limiting, potentially.
Very limiting. And the fear, the anxiety, the potential for panic, it's intense for those who live with it.
Mm.
But importantly, like we saw with those support services,
Right, the driving services and things.
yeah, there are ways people cope. There are strategies and support systems available, which is, encouraging. People find ways to navigate it.
That's good to know. Okay, so maybe a final thought to leave people with.
Go for it.
Well, just think about infrastructure, right? Bridges, tunnels. We use them every day, mostly without a second thought. They connect our world.
Yeah, totally take them for granted most of the time.
But for some people, those very same structures are sources of, like, major anxiety. So it makes you wonder what other ordinary, mundane parts of our environment might be creating hidden challenges or fears for other people.
That's a powerful thought. Thinking about those unseen struggles connected to everyday things.
Yeah, just something to consider about the different ways people experience the same world.